Greetings, friends. My name is Jan Nel. I come from Thailand, and I would like to speak to you today on a very exciting subject to me, which is the releasing of blessing. Many years ago, I was facing a major issue in my church, and one thing after another led to the fact that I came upon an understanding, a biblical understanding, that there was such a thing as blessing and curses. It's a long story, it's a long study, you can find it on my website. But specifically, the issue of releasing blessing became very exciting to me. I had a young son at that time entering high school, and I got to see that if you could release blessing in a number of ways. Number one, it had to be biblical. Number two, it had to fit. Number three, it had to be in faith. Number four, it had to be something that was from the heart of God, and so on. There are a number of factors. And so I started to realize that if I started to speak prophetically over my son, that there was a great possibility his life would be affected. Well, I did that for the rest of his schooling career. Every morning I'd take him to school, I would place my hand upon him, and I would bless him specifically. I wouldn't say, I bless you today, Patrick, have a blessed day, or something like that. I said to him specific things like, today I bless you, Patrick, that you would be an inspiration to your friends, and that you would be able to receive great wisdom from the Lord, and that you would understand difficult subjects. Anything God was showing me, I would pray over him. Well, long story short, at the end of his schooling, he ended up receiving nearly all the major awards on the graduation night. It was tremendously embarrassing. He was best student, he was best athlete, it just went on and on and on. And on top of it, three young men stood up and said, we want to thank all the teachers for what they've done. And we also want to thank Patrick Nell, who has been our father in the Lord all these years and has trained us and taught us to walk like Jesus. It was just a wonderful evening. And so I got to realize that this stuff really works. I then got a phone call from a pastor while I was down in a town called Nelspruit in South Africa, right next to the Kruger National Park. And he called me just before I was leaving. He said, would you be willing to have breakfast with one of our members? He owns a restaurant, and there has been for weeks no people come for lunch and very few come for dinner. It's just like it's a curse. And so he said, would you go and bless him because you taught on this blessing? Well, I went along with my son Patrick, who of course had experienced this, and I prayed over all the staff, and I prayed over this man, Kevin. Well, before we reached home, we were 4 hours away from our home. Before we reached home, I received a call from the pastor, and he said to me, I just want to tell you that Kevin has been booked out for lunch. He's booked out for dinner. And a tour company has arrived here and asked him to sign a contract to cater for 2 buses a day for the next year that are entering the park, filled with tourists. It was like, God, this is amazing. A little while later, I was listening to a TV show, Larry King Live, and the Larry King made this amazing statement. It said, he asked one of the Jewish billionaires and said to them, why is it that the Jews are so successful wherever they go? It doesn't matter what country, they succeed. And the man laughed and he said, oh, that's easy. This is the answer. Our fathers bless us every week. Wow. You see, fathers releasing blessings to families is the key, because God our Father moves through the earthly father to touch the family. That's how it works. And so when we take the blessing that God has released and we speak it over our family and release it by faith, and they receive it by faith, then they're blessed. So the last example I want to give you is one of my congregation had been in the red in his business for like 7-8 years. He started the business. It was a big valve business for mines, and he just couldn't make any money out of this. And I felt one day the Lord tell me to go to him and to bless him specifically. So I went into the office. I said to him, Graham, I'd like to bless you, and is that okay? He said, I'll take anything. And so I laid my hands on him and I blessed him. Sat down, had some tea. 20 minutes later, the phone rings. It's a Ugandan mining company that's opening an old mine. And they asked him to give them a quote to replace all the valves throughout the mine. He gives them the quote. Before I leave, he has got the contract. And he ends up 3 months later phoning me and saying, Jan, please can you help me? I have a problem. The problem is I'm getting so much profit that I'm going to lose it to tax if I don't have a clever method of disseminating the finances. Amazing. Well, I want to close with this. There are specifically 3 areas that are critical to human beings that we should bless in our children, our family. The number one place is in their what's called their identity. The second is bless them in their purpose. The third is to bless them in their destiny. That correlates to their identity is their self-worth. Their purpose is their security, the sense of well-being they feel. And their destiny speaks of their significance to this earth. So the way that is done is that fathers should, and mothers of course are involved, but the way that should be done is that we bless them first in their identity by speaking affection into their life. You bless them in their security by speaking acceptance into their life. And you bless them in their significance by speaking affirmation into their lives. And so we see that model displayed in Jesus in John chapter 3, when Jesus goes into, Matthew 3, where Jesus is baptized in the river Jordan by John. And it says that, number one, he is put under the water, the sign of the Trinity. The Holy Spirit descends like a dove, and a voice speaks from heaven, the Father. And he says this, "This is my Son," acceptance, "whom I love," affection, "and in him I am well pleased," affirmation. So that his identity was strong, his purpose was strong, and his destiny was secured. So that he had self-worth, he had a sense of security, and he had a sense of significance. I encourage you, bless your family. Bless your family, bless those that God gives you. If you're a pastor, bless your churches. If you're a businessman, bless your workers. I pray this has been a blessing to you.